Right, it's recording now. Thank you.
This is the executive member meeting for regulatory services and licensing for contracting, procurement and social value, and also land and property and the budgets that go with those services. Welcome, everybody. The first item on the agenda today is the monitoring report. Everybody on the call's had that. Ian Mulholland.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Howard. That came to follow, and that's for it's been updated by all the necessary people, and it's for any comments or observations, and it's for noting for you today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Flitcroft.
Thank you, Chair. I've had a scan through it. It's still showing on there, the Zacks building. I was under the impression that the Zacks building had been removed as a cat. Could I have an update on that?
I'll let Mr. Williamson.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Flitcroft, yes, that's absolutely right. That part of the report may need to be updated if it hasn't been caught this time round. There was an agreement for, as it was called, Zacks in the past, for Pressley Community Centre to be removed from the cat list, and for that and to be handled in a different way. We have been progressing that matter, so we'll make sure the report is updated on the next occasion.
Thank you, Andrew. For clarity, can I just ask, was the building ever up for sale, or was it always a transfer?
I believe it was, as far as I'm aware, always a transfer, certainly in recent years.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that.
Welcome.
I'm just going to add, before I bring Councillor Grant David in, to say that so I refer to them by their date on the left-hand side. That's the easiest thing because the pages don't get a number. So 13/2/2024 is actually lease at Presto Lee. And let me apologise that we've slightly erred by calling it Kersley Community Centre. We call it Presto Lee Community Centre, or a different title. And that's actually about the lease, and it's telling us way down on this report there that is to complete this year. And associated with that, on the same date actually, is lease at Burndon Way, Horwich, and that mentions finalisation and to complete within this year. And that's good examples of leases that are approved and then not taking too much time, because I want to comment on some other items on the monitoring report in a minute. Councillor Grant, please.
Thank you, Chair. Where are we up to with the 2 pocket parks at Blackrod that were meant to be transferred to them? They've done all the background. I believe Lee was going to look into it because he thought we were making it more complicated than we needed to. But again, it seems to have dropped off the radar. Could anybody update me on that, please?
Does one of the officers want to give a view? Because I've got one as well.
Yeah, I can. Sorry, Andrew, I was just jumping in there. But in terms of the work is still ongoing. It's that we are doing a lot of work of trying to transfer buildings and understand where all the land is. I'm not sure, Andrew, if there's a more up-to-date piece, but it is certainly something that we're actively looking at doing and working with the local council or town councils across the piece on a number of pieces of land or buildings.
Indeed, and to add to what you've just said, Lee, I think the intention is to remove, with the approval from Councillor Howarth, those 2 items from the cat list. We do need to review the entire cat list and seek Councillor Howarth's approval in how to treat it. But where we can streamline and expedite some of the sort of handling of the properties like pocket parks, we absolutely will do, to try to move those forward as quickly as possible. We have spent quite a considerable amount of time to make sure that the first operationalised cat at 52 Washacre has been pushed through, and there's quite a lot of activity on that in the background, and we've been very focused on getting that through to take learnings from it. But that doesn't actually preclude us now moving on to treating those pocket parks in the right way.
Thank you very much for that update. So that's something we will likely need to have a meeting on or brief on if we're taking those pocket parks off the cat list, David. that's all right. Yeah. Okay, just the other updates are 15/7/2019. That's the disability awareness and safeguarding training for the taxi trade. That's been agreed with taxi reps, that will end up in full compliance by October 2024. So that'll be part of the licensing approval on their licenses, and that's free training at the moment. The next one I should mention is two together, 27/4/21 and 29/11/2022. This is about the long lease at land of former Horwich Health Centre. So that's car park, that's with regeneration as an item. But we now have a completion date that says August 2024. Then we've got 11/4/2022. That's grant of lease of the former Susan Isaacs building. That's in Queen's Park Ward. That took a few years to complete, and that's granted March 2024. Next one again, 21/11/2022. That's another lease. That's at Heaton and Lostock Centre. After about a year and a half's work, it's the tenant actually now that's back in lease negotiation. So obviously that might clock up the time on any completion. And then I think I've just got one more, because it was good to give you the examples of lease completions that took less time. But of course, there are reasons why some leases take time to come to a sign off, and I gave you one example already, which is that the tenant themselves wanted more time on something. So the next one I just want to give you the update on that's there is that sale of land that was 19/9/2023. Now that was sale of land where we are contributing to social wellbeing, and that's sites in Halliwell and Great Lever. And a notable size sale there, that's not going ahead, and that's because of a water culvert issue. And the plan is to replot the land for sales, and but the last comment there is to sell this year and to get on with that. So I think that does underscore the busy work of the property section. Thank you very much indeed for that. And that, as Ian reminds me, I'm just noting that report today. The next item that we're going to go to is the corporate budget. This is the final outturn, 2023/2024. We've got Janet Pollard on the call. Thank you, Janet.
Thank you, Councillor Howarth. So this is the final outturn report for the Directorate of Corporate Resources. At the end of the year, the Directorate underspent by £54,000. For this portfolio, it is an overspend of £4,000. There are no general reserves held by the Directorate. Key financial findings can be found on page 3, and service-specific findings can be found on Appendix A. The Executive Cabinet member is asked to note the report and to approve the recommendations in section 11. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Yeah, please, use the hand raise or just speak into the microphone if you think I can't see you. Does anybody want to raise any questions or make any comments on this end of year report? Not at the moment. Okay, I'm going to start with the recommendations. So the first two are that I just note the revenue budget changes, and the second one is to note the revenue, capital and reserve financial position. I'm just giving you the first bits of the sentences when it's noting. But then I'm going to go on to, I've got to approve, or I'm asked to approve the revisions made to the capital programme, which fall under this portfolio. And for property, you find that at 5.1.2 in the report, table 6, and also Appendix 8 of the report. I can do that, approve that. Then approve the Director of Corporate Resources, who's on the call. It's delegated authority to call off on the framework for the capital programme as detailed in section 5.16. Now, the last approval I don't need to do unless I'm advised differently, and that because that's deletion of a post. That's actually in the leaders portfolio. That's all right. Yeah. Thank you very much indeed for that one. So the next item is the place budget, and that's the final outturn report for 2023/2024. Janet, please, for this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Howarth. So this is the final outturn report for the Directorate of Place. At the end of the financial year, the Directorate overspent by £803,000. For this particular portfolio, there is an underspend of £54,000. There are no general reserves held by the Directorate. The key financial findings can be found on page 3, and service-specific findings can be found on Appendix A. The Executive Cabinet members asked to note the report and to approve the recommendations in section 11. Thank you.
Oh yeah, thank you very much. Any comments or questions on this budget final outturn for place? Not just yet. Okay, so again, the first items I'm asked to do are to, forgive me, note the revenue budget. It's just slipped. And then note the revenue, capital and reserves financial position. That's the same. But on this final outturn report, I don't have to approve because there aren't any revisions on the capital programme. I think actually regulatory services is the only one that doesn't have any capital from memory on this. Yes, it is, isn't it? And therefore I don't have to approve that the Director of Place gets delegated authority because there's nothing for regulatory services on this. And then the last approval is actually for the Exec Cabinet member for culture. So this is a document I can just note. And thanks very much for, it's a lot of work. That's the whole year's work for 2 big parts of the council. Now we're on to current budgets. The first one is the corporate budget current. Please,
Okay.
Janet
Yep.
Pollard, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Howarth. So this report's the strategic budget report for 24-25 for the Directorate of Corporate Resources. This report is the final stage of the corporate business planning process, and the Executive Cabinet member is asked to note the report and to approve any recommendations that are appropriate in section 10. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Does anybody want to say anything about the current budget at all? This is the corporate budget. We've got a fair bit of finance in this for this portfolio because it's property. Okay, recommendations. To note the 2024-25 revenue budget for corporate resources, 37.8 million. And to note the 2024-25 capital programme, the same. This is the full total actually for corporate resources. That's 10.7 million. And then note and approve the allocated savings and efficiency options totaling 481,000 for corporate resources and 1.7 million of corporate debt remodelling savings. And that's all set out in the report. And approve that the Director of Corporate Resources has delegated authority to call off on the required frameworks to support the capital programme. And we have a notable capital programme for property in there, in the pages. Okay, I've done that. Thank you very much, Janet. And then we've got one last budget report.
Yeah, thank you very much. So this particular report is a strategic budget report for 24-25 for the Directorate of Place. The report's final stage of the corporate business planning process. Section 6 contains fees and charges that are appropriate, that are not going to go up or down within the 2% in the February report for the corporate budget. The Executive Cabinet member is asked to note the report and to approve the recommendations in section 8. Can members please note that the 24-25 capital programme in the recommendations at the end of the report in section 8 is actually 49.2 million rather than the 54 million that is actually within the report. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Please, would you repeat the last bit about the capital summary?
Yes, certainly. So in section 8, the capital programme, the figure that's actually in the report is 54.4 million, but actually it is 49.2 million. That is in the recommendations at the beginning of the report, and all the documents within, all the tables within the report all come to the 49.2 million. It was just a type of the 54.4 million.
Yeah. Oh, thanks very much for that update. Okay, I've got to note the 2024-25 revenue budget. This is Place. Note and approve the identified savings and efficiencies within the report. Yes. Note the capital programme also for Place, 49 million. Now, there is a fair bit going on around the capital programme, and a fair bit going on around fees and charges that are not within the 2% uplift on inflation and so on. But none of those are regulatory services. So, and we try to just keep our questions to the stuff that's about the portfolio I've got. So I don't actually have to do those approvals. It's for other exec members to do approvals. Have I asked, did I take the time, if anybody wants to ask any questions or make any comments? I might have just missed that when I was just checking that that capital with Janet there. Okay, no, I don't think so. So thank you. We've got through those budget reports. Much appreciated. And the next and the last item on the agenda today is a new lease at Montcliff Quarry in Horwich paper. Andrew Williamson, yes, please. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor. This is a report that we originally brought to you, Councillor, in February. On the 13th of February, you approved the report, and it relates to the surrendering of the current lease at Montcliff Quarries with Armstrong's Aggregates and the creation of a new lease. It's a minerals lease. And there's quite a lot of detail in the report that I know we went through in February that led to you approving it. The report was requested by a number of councillors to go to place scrutiny to debate the nature of the report and how various factors would be looked after, for instance, planning enforcement and matters relating to the tenure of the lease versus planning permission for the site and so on. So that place scrutiny meeting happened on the 19th of March. And positively, a motion was passed relating to these factors, and officers have included the motion as it was passed into the substance of the report. So we've updated the report, and we've also clarified that the 15-year lease for the new lease would extend from now, let's assume that we are able to put the new lease in place in 2024 until 2039. Planning permission for Montcliff Quarries ends in 2037, in February of that year, and that would allow, within the 15-year lease, a 2-year or so period for land restoration, which is the obligation of Armstrong's Aggregates as the tenant. So we've fully incorporated those points, and we're seeking now for you to note and approve the report as it stands.
Yeah, thank you to you and the team for all the effort that's gone into this. Do any members want to make any comments or raise any questions at all about the document today? Okay, we can move on to the document and the front sheet then that requests that I do some approvals around authorisation. I'll just double check. Councillor Grant, do you want to raise any points at all today about this paper?
No, Chair. I think the discussions that we had on our concerns and the subsequent motion were helpful. I think it's cleared things up for us, so I'm happy for it to proceed. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm very grateful for all those that contributed at scrutiny, and certainly the Horwich councillors who've continued to contribute and have meetings. One of the main outstanding issues, of course, is that there is a sufficient and robust clauses to the new minerals lease so that the ceasing of mineral extraction on the lease is coterminous, matching to the end dates of the related planning permissions at Montcliff Quarry, and also any other number of items that were part of the motion are part mostly of the quarries committee that we run from Bolton Council with Horwich about the Horwich quarries, and we're meeting very soon, and so we're going to be ensuring that all of those items get covered for as long as they need to. And just a reminder that Montcliff Quarry and the quarries still go to place scrutiny committee, and some of that is actually environment regulation that goes there, as well as planning issues that get scrutinised at place scrutiny. So as the executive cabinet member, I'm recommended to delegate authority to the Director of Corporate Resources in consultation with the Borough Solicitor to surrender, negotiate and conclude the new lease for Montcliff Quarry and any related documents and notices. Also to authorise the Borough Treasurer to deal with any financial formalities and additionally authorise the Borough Solicitor to complete the necessary legal formalities. So thanks very much, everybody. We've come to the end of the meeting. Much appreciated. Oh, I'll just check.
Sorry.
Yeah, Ian.
I'll stop the recording, Councillor Howarth, now, if that's okay.
Yes. Thanks.